In 2008, Canadian musician Dave Carroll faced an incident that would become a viral sensation and a public relations nightmare for United Airlines. Travelling from Halifax Stanfield International Airport to Omaha Eppley Airfield, he was to have a quick stopover in Chicago. It was during the layover in Chicago that events unfolded, setting the stage for a social media storm that would ultimately tarnish the airline. Carroll, originally from Ontario, was part of a music duo known as the Sons of Maxwell. Along with his brother Don, the band was known for its unique blend of Celtic folk and pop. In 2006, they won the East Coast Music Award for their song Sunday Morning. But Carroll's real claim to fame was still to come. While waiting for a connecting flight in Chicago, he saw the United Airlines ground handlers mishandling luggage and tossing bags onto the tarmac. Seeing his guitar was among the items, he raised the issue with a United Airlines gate agent. However, the agent dismissed him and said any damage was covered by a waiver. Hoping for the best, upon arrival in Omaha, Dave discovered that his $3,500 Taylor acoustic guitar, which he had saved up to purchase, had been damaged. Despite his efforts to address the issue with the airline, he found himself entangled in a bureaucratic dead end. Given the runaround by customer service, he was passed from one department to another with no resolution. It took 9 months of communication before the airline acknowledged his complaint. Eventually, he was told that he hadn't filed the complaint soon enough, and as a result, United was not responsible. Frustrated and left without compensation, Carroll decided to take the matters into his own hands. Drawing on his background as a musician, he wrote a song titled United Breaks Guitars, humorously chronicling his experience with the airline. He uploaded the video to YouTube and shared it with his 400 friends on Facebook. However, he wasn't expecting what happened next. Gaining more than 1 million views in a week on YouTube, the response was immediate. Thousands of viewers reached out to him, sharing their own stories of poor customer service with United. The video caught the attention of Taylor Guitars, who offered him 2 brand new ones as a gift. Yet, the viral video's most significant consequence was its effect on United. It was reported that the airline's stock dropped by 10%, resulting in a $180 million fall in value. However, when I researched that claim further, I found it appears largely exaggerated. In a move of damage control, United reached out to Dave Carroll and offered him $1,200 in compensation, and that much again in flight vouchers. However, by then, the reputational damage had already been done. In the early hours of June 23, 1993, a quiet suburban neighborhood in Manassas, Virginia, became the focus of a story that would make international headlines and countless documentaries. Lorena Boppert, a 24-year-old immigrant from Ecuador, was married to John Boppert, a former Marine. Their marriage was stormy, marked by allegations of physical and emotional abuse. Lorena claimed John often used violence and marital assault as a tool of control, although, according to him, it was her that was abusive.
Lorena has said that you were physically abusive to her.
Yeah. Well, it's easy to turn things around. I can say, well, she's physically abusive to me.
You never fought back?
Tried to, subdue her or restrain her.
On the night in question, John had come home drunk after a night on the town. According to her, he'd forced himself on her. He said it was the other way around, but he was too drunk and had gone straight to sleep. She alleged after he'd assaulted her, she waited for him to fall asleep. She then went to the kitchen, grabbed a knife, returned to the bedroom and cut off his penis. After the incident, she got in her car, drove for 15 minutes and threw the organ out the window. She then called the police, confessed, and informed them of the location of the organ. Police quickly found it and placed it on ice. It must be said, though, that his side of the story was much different.
When I sprung up and I was bleeding and I was applying pressure, then immediately I thought it was something out of a horror movie.
It was a nightmare, but it was real.
It turned into reality. Horrified, terrified. Thought I was going to die.
John Wayne Boppert was rushed to hospital where surgeons successfully reattached the organ after a 9-hour surgery. However, the story of that night was far from over. John was charged with marital assault, but a jury acquitted him in November of 1993 due to the flimsy at best evidence. Lorena Boppert was charged with malicious wounding, an offence that comes with up to 20 years in prison. She alleged in court that years of abuse had caused her to act in a state of temporary insanity. The jury agreed, finding her not guilty by way of temporary insanity. While researching the story, it came across very much as a he said, she said thing, and it was hard to know who to believe, and my final thought was that perhaps both were as bad as each other. Perhaps the strangest part of it was that John, despite his ordeal, would go on to capitalize on his fame and take part in adult movies, starring alongside the infamous Ron Jeremy. With a 2020 population of around 130,000 people, Morgantown, West Virginia is neither big nor small. Yet, when researching the video, I came across not one, but two shocking stories of revenge that escalated to fatal outcomes. This, the second of the two, took place in 2014. Resident local Jody Lee Hunt was a man with a troubled past. In 1999, he'd been sentenced to 10 years in prison for felony kidnapping and use of a firearm against an ex-girlfriend. However, since then, until now at least, his life seemed to have turned around. He ran JJ Towing and Repair, a towing company in the area. Alas, he had several grievances, both personal and professional. At the centre of his rage was his ex-girlfriend, 39-year-old Sharon K. Berkshire. Their relationship had ended badly when she filed a domestic violence complaint against him. After the breakup, she dated a younger man, 28-year-old Michael Frum, who repeatedly taunted Hunt through text messages, further stoking his jealousy and anger. But it wasn't just the failed relationship driving his fury. His business partner, who, coincidentally, was also a man named Jody, he suspected of having an affair with his ex whilst they were still together. Furthermore, he believed Doug Brady, owner of Doug's Towing, a rival to his own business, had stole jobs from him. On the 1st of December 2014, Hunt took his revenge a little too far. Armed with a gun, he drove to Doug's Towing. As his first victim, he shot Doug twice, ending his life. Next, he drove to the home of his ex-girlfriend and her new partner. Inside, he ended the life of the boyfriend, before turning to his ex as she tried to flee. The final stop on his revenge tour was that of his cousin and business partner Jody Taylor, who, of course, was suspected of the affair. After gunning him down too, he fled the scene in his Ford F-150. The murders set off a 12-hour manhunt, and whilst on the run, Jody turned to Facebook, posting he hoped his victims had received their fair pay of hurt. By the time the authorities found him, he had taken his own life. Born of a mixture of personal suspicion and professional rivalry, the incident had cost the lives of 5 people. In 1864, during the Civil War, the Union seized the Arlington estate of Confederate General Robert E. Lee. Once the home of Lee and his family, the property would become a symbol of a divided nation. Brigadier General Montgomery C. Meigs, a Union officer who had once served under Lee in the US Army, considered him a traitor for joining the Confederacy. As the Union's quartermaster general, Meigs wanted revenge and saw an opportunity in the estate which had been seized off Lee. Meigs proposed to Secretary of War Edwin Stanton that the property be made into a national military cemetery. He suggested moving the graves of Union soldiers closer to Lee's mansion, a strategic move with personal undertones. The location, overlooking Washington, D.C., was ideal for a cemetery, and Stanton approved the proposal. But Meigs had another purpose. By putting the Union war debt on Lee's property, he ensured it could never be returned to the family. He ordered a mass grave to be dug in the garden of Lee's wife, Mary, interring over 2,000 Union soldiers and erecting a sarcophagus to honor them, thus creating the Arlington National Cemetery. Meigs knew it would now be politically impossible for the property to be reclaimed after the war. Lee and his wife, for the most part, accepted their fate. In 1874, Lee's eldest son, George Washington Custis Lee, sued the US government for the return of the property, claiming that it had been confiscated illegally. 9 years later, in 1883, he settled with the federal government for a payout of $150,000, but the estate would remain a national cemetery. The Arlington National Cemetery continues as a reminder of the Civil War. Interestingly, 2 US presidents, John F. Kennedy and William Howard Taft, the 27th president, are both buried there. This final story is a case of revenge served cold. half a century later. High school can be difficult, particularly if you aren't one of the cool kids. In June of 2012, 73-year-old South Dakota man Carl Erickson was sentenced to life in prison after shooting and killing his former classmate, Norman Johnson, who by then was a retired school teacher, also in his 70s. Although he apologized to Johnson's widow in court and said that he wished he could turn back the clock, Erickson said he couldn't let go of an incident in which Johnson placed a jockstrap over his head back in high school. That's all for today's video. If you found value in it, I'd love it if you subscribed and joined me for the next one. To watch another of my videos, you can click the link on screen. And as always, thanks for watching.